Chibuzor. Very good morning to you, gentlemen. Good to have you in the studio.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Chibuzor. It's great to see you.
Okay, good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Uade. It's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute, right? If I can put it that way.
Okay.
Well, good morning. Good to see you again. And
Where were you? You ran away.
me, I was on sabbatical.
Okay.
Sabbatical,
Uh,
as they say.
Because fuel is not very expensive.
Fuel is the new gold.
yeah, some people are working 3 days a week now.
We'll get to that.
We'll start from there.
We'll get to that.
Until you can get into a situation whereby you can see things starting to improve.
All right, let's begin with the Daily Trust. And Uade, I'm going to begin with you here. Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC has suspended its planned strike over the hike in fuel subsidy as a result of the subsidy removal. After the union had mobilized for a nationwide strike, asking the federal government to revert to the old rate of 197 naira per litre to prevent the strike from happening.
Well, I was never a fan of Labour wanting to go on strike, but good news that at least they're not calling people. They're not going to make public sector grounded again, because once public sector is grounded, a number of things never really tend to happen. We saw with ASU strike, students were at home for 8 months. But good news, I don't know what to call him now. Is he still the Speaker of the House, or the outgoing Speaker of the House, or is he the Chief of Staff?
He hasn't been sworn in.
Oh, okay, so the representative of the government, for sitting through those sessions, and I would also commend the Labour Ministry. I think is the permanent secretary, for taking time to sit through. But every time I hear this, it's always about government workers going on strike. We should look at this from a holistic perspective. Some of the things they've asked for, look at in education, look at health. They will set up a joint committee to review some of the things that they've discussed, and they will come back. I think it's on June 19 for further deliberations to work out how the framework should run. But the framework is not just about increasing public sector workers' salary. It should be holistic, that would impact the formal, the informal sector, so that everybody can see that finally in Nigeria we're seeing a framework that everybody will believe and have some level of confidence and trusting that it's going to help them, or it's going to help the country come out of what people say is a crisis. I've been an advocate of taking out subsidy for the last 10 years, and I don't regret it, because at the end of the day, we've wasted so much money, really doing nothing, and where we've suffered in terms of infrastructure, whether those that have been started and never completed, whether those that have been started and completed, and they're not up to par with what you call standards and all. Well, at the end of the day, let's see how it goes. They come back on June 19, the proper committee, and based on, I think it was a 7-point agenda that they agreed to. So, it was about 7 points. So, on those things, people should read the details and start to think how or what do they expect, whether it's Labour, whether it's the government, to put together as a framework, a proper framework that Nigerians can believe in, that is actually going to take us out of this
Situation.
for subsidy situation that has been prolonged, and it has lasted forever. First subsidy has been around for at least almost 50 years.
Okay. So I would like to chip in. When it comes to labor, I used to be very strong. Everything labor, student unions, everything. I just completely unnecessary in the capitalist system. But over time, I've also turned it to understand how these things could be important and what roles they could play in society. The failure of labor for me is always waiting until the issue happens, then coming out and using strikes as the weapon of first and last resort. It should never be the weapon of first and last resort. What I expect labor to do, apart from whenever they finish whatever deliberations they have with the government and come out whatever they have to, is to hold this government accountable the same way they hold themselves to account. Subsidy removal of subsidy is part of the bigger thing, trying to cut costs and trying to grow our revenue. It doesn't make sense, and this is one thing I would say, where in a country where people are now being forced to spend more on fueling the cars, we still have government officials running large convoys of vehicles in and out of locations, spending money on large parties and gatherings in whatever
Without even batting
celebrations
an eyelid.
without batting an eyelid, where 90 something percent of your people are now forced to now cut their costs. Labor should hold the government accountable. A lot of the time we spend time on traffic, e.g. on the third mainland. It's not because there are many cars on that platform. It's just because the roads are in the worst shape I've seen in the last 15 to 20 years as a young Nigerian. We need to hold our governments accountable. We need to pay our taxes. We need to be able to speak out whatever we need to do, our truth, what we need to do it. Election seasons are over. Let's stop all the election boundary. Let's leave the court cases for the people in the courts and let's see how they resolve. But as Nigerian citizens, we should hold our governments to account and stop pandering on elections and ethnic sentiment, which a lot of us are still caught up in.
All right. For our listeners, you can be a part of the conversation this morning by sending a message via WhatsApp on 0809 4440981. You can also join the live stream on YouTube. Yes, we're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, let's move on to our next story here, and we're still staying with subsidy removal and Uade. This is one we actually should I say segued into the show on, still on subsidy removal. And the Kwara State Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak on Monday met with top labor leaders in the state, appealing to them to understand the recent removal of fuel subsidy was done in good faith to curb further damage to the economy. Now, that came as the governor approved an immediate reduction of workdays for the state's workforce to lessen the subsidy removal's impact on their earnings. So 3 days work week for them in Kwara?
Let's start with something. And that's what Chibuzor and I were talking about this downstairs. 3 days, yes, because there's an impact. You're not increasing their salaries immediately. That's all. You're not. Maybe you give them some additional transport allowance, but it also, for me, governors should start thinking beyond, outside the box. How do you now put e-governance truly into the perspective of it? You're working 3 days. That's physically coming to work doesn't mean that I can't work the extra 2 days in having meetings, whether it's via Zoom or or whether it's via Teams or something. Because in today's world, and these are some of the things that would help you reduce, in actual fact, reduce the cost of governance. Because when I do a Zoom meeting, rather than packing people to drive from one spot to the other, it helps you.
But there's no per diem.
There's no per diem. Yeah, but the reality of it is, if we need to go through this current situation of fuel subsidy has to go, Nigeria has been broke for God knows how long. The little savings go a long way. And like you said, at the end of the day, for me, is working out the structure of why have 100 people in one department come to work every day when you can, assign the responsibilities within the departments and say, okay, you're coming to work Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, this week, and so on and so forth. How many people do you really require to get that job done? And if you put in e-governance, you will find out that, yes, people might not lose their jobs, but people can, what's that, what you call it? You can work on shifts and better manage the system and make it more formidable. So I'm happy that the governor of Kwara State has, taken the initiative to first, okay, let's quickly reduce number of days so you don't have to leave them. But it doesn't mean that if you require something, they can reach out to you. And those are some of the things that you need to put in place. And I'm glad. And while they're working out, they set up a committee to work out, what salaries increase should be and all. But let's remember that as you're increasing everybody's salary, everybody's increasing government salaries, I hope we don't go back to the doji issue whereby monies came and then increased everybody's salaries and everything shut out. Inflation is still going to go up a bit until we get our acts together. And my belief is this current administration would invest truly all the savings in infrastructure development that can that can help you yield how revenue comes in, and try and improve. For me, a huge area of improvement should be not increasing taxes, but increasing the net of those who pay the taxes, and let people start to have some belief in governance. Except otherwise, I don't know where we're going to be if you start to trust. We've said on this program so many times, the issue is the deficit of trust in governance. If you started this, people are believing, people have agreed that subsidy should go. So let's see whether we can trust you over the next 1 year, 2 years to put in the right systems for these things to be driven.
Now, Chibuzor, looking at what the Kwara State government has done, of course, that is for that's for the workforce, that's for the state workforce. Now, looking at the private sector, should this also be something for the private sector to look into as well? Because they're also in this situation together. We are all in Nigeria together, and wouldn't it be something that would also help in order to at least cushion the effects of what is going on right now?
So Wadi was very optimistic in his views about pushing e-governance and things like that, and that's where we ought to go. Side point. I don't think they're the first state government to move to a 3-day working week.
I think Kaduna does for this.
And Kaduna did. I know there are some of the states in the east, but what they did was say go back to the farms because they were basically trying to avoid paying an increase in salaries. And for me, that was just a waste of an opportunity. But going back to what you said, really, a lot of organizations need to look at that. I'm someone who's always supported a hybrid model, especially after the lockdown. The use of technology has also made it possible for a lot of people to get value by being in the office for particular days where you have the community, you can share ideas, you can have that natural interaction that brings value in working. But there's also some specific tasks, especially when your tasks are well planned, your work is well planned in particular sectors, you can actually work from home for a day or two in the week, which helps you to balance your costs. The only flip side with that is that obviously you also have to deal with power. If you have to work from home, you have to deal with the cost of data. Now, if your power costs that's one thing, one argument in the power sector. I'm sure they're waiting in the ranks, trying to also increase their cost, their charges or their charges to be able to meet market reflective costs. That is also something waiting in the wings for in Nigeria. And the president has talked about making cheaper power happen. I'm still waiting to see how that will happen, and there's still some time to wait. But in the long run, people are going to have to make decisions about what is more expensive for me to do: going to the office and sitting at that physical office, or staying back at home. The offices also will need to take costs. They will also make decisions, and you know what? I'm an organization that needs to keep my generator on for X number of hours in the day. Do I want to do this with the cost of fuel? Unless maybe they're already on diesel and they've already moved to that point. But the smaller businesses who have small gens, do they want to spend that cost
Big question to ask.
than actually allowing the people to stay at home for a day and maybe even give them some small change to
get
buy something to their better pass my neighbor to just run. Yeah, so those are things that companies need to look at also.
Just one last thing based on what Chibuzor said. Whether you're running diesel, if you shorten the hours, the costs go down. Some of those monies can be channeled towards get some data at home, get some fuel so that you can walk at least 6 hours and so on and so forth.
I'll give you a funny story. My son's school, so people used to stay over 4 o'clock. They used to have like maximum pick up time of 4 o'clock, and they used to charge a fee.
Yeah.
When these costs went up high, I think it was end of last year,
Yeah.
it went up extremely high. They told parents, see, we don't care. We don't want your money. Come and take your children. We are offering our gen.
At 4 o'clock. That's it.
As simple as that. All right, let me quickly take messages from WhatsApp before going a quick breather. This is from Cisco Delgado. He says, good morning. NLC going on strike is irrelevant because they have never achieved anything by embarking on strike. Instead, they add to problems of the economy due to the strike, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Tunde says, mark my words, we will be back here in the next 4 years complaining of infrastructure decay across all sectors as the monies saved will be looted. Government refuses to cut the cost of governance nor take pay cuts, instead increasing the fleet of cars in their convoys, using free petrol while urging the masses to bear the yoke. Government admits it has failed in responsibility of policing the borders and managing effects, but can't bear the consequences. All right, thanks for your message. So they keep them coming. 0809 440 981.
Can I just quickly say something to what Tunde said? Every time you have a new government, you must have some level of trust. I know we've gone through a lot in the last 8 years, but this is the same administration that one of the things they said is sector reforms. let's keep them and let's see the way they want to design the framework for sector returns, and that's really important. Really.
All right, you're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The show continues shortly. Do stay with us.
The major problem in Nigeria is trust.
No, because there's no. See, I'll tell you, where does trust come from? Trust comes also from telling the people what you're going to do. Even within the electoral, what we are doing, a lot of people are doing is not trust. We are hoping. Because these people have not told you exactly what they're going to do. Throughout electioneering, people ask them questions about what exactly are you going to do, and they say, "Oh, people made as spurious excuses that we can't tell you, so the other person will not steal our ideas." I was in secondary school. But the beauty about it wasn't their problem. The problem wasn't with them. Politicians can say anything
they
like.
The media people that were asking the questions. One, two, those who will never follow up and say,
I don't know.
That's my.
My own problem was not even about politicians. Politicians will do what they do. They will take the easiest way out. My problem is the people who will take that and say, "Oh, it's fine. Why should they tell what they're going to do?"
For instance, when you say, "Are we going back on?"
Yes.
We're back on.
Welcome back. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Looking at the headlines making the rounds across the dailies from the country across Nigeria. And with me analyzing the stories are Chibuzor and Uade as well. All right, let's take another story here from the Vanguard. Now, Uade, I'm going to stay with you on this one. Sorry, Chibuzor, I'm going to stay with you on this one. Now, President Bola Tinubu on Monday pleaded with health workers to go back to work as he promised to revive and restore public confidence in the health sector in Nigeria. That's very interesting to hear. What are your thoughts on this, Chibuzor?
Okay. While we were off briefly, one of the things I spoke about was that the current, yes, we're going to give Nigerians don't have a choice but to give the new government some time to get their feet on the ground and get their policies and their actions into play. But it's also one of the things I also have told everybody who bothers to care is that one of the problems is that we're not having what we're having to do now is hope, and that's because while they were campaigning and they were in electioneering season, people did not speak in detail about what they were going to do, and unfortunately, as Nigerians, we've fallen into this attitude where our support for candidates overwhelms our need to hear what is going to change or move the needle for us as citizens. So a lot of us supported those positions of, you don't need to share with us anything because you don't want the other person to know what they want to plan and repeat the same thing. Well, let's move on. We are now, we are where we are now in the middle of it. So the president is basically has told the health unions so that they should trust in him. Those are the key phrases. Trust in him, believe in him, that he will solve all the problems of the sector. They just need to give them some time to do so. That they would have a look at all the problems that they are working on having a plan to sort it out, and it's all fine. Everybody needs a plan. Everybody needs to be able to look at things. Everybody who is in leadership needs to have a plan, needs to be able to look at the problems and have put together a plan and a team to resolve the problems. But typically, what I would have expected to have happened, and this is me being idealistic, that this should have been aligned with whatever plans the president would have had for the sector even before coming in. But we're where we are. They are doing this. I hope they're not just doing what has happened in previous regimes where we kick the problems down the road. The last regime did the same and kicked the subsidy problem down the road to the last day of their terminal point, and the new government had to take up that baton and have done what they have had to do. When people say that Labour keeps going in the same direction over and over again, we are expecting different results. I agree to a large extent, but I also agree that government also are complicit in it. The government, instead of having dialogue and having engagements and putting forward their plans of what they want to do and engaging Labour, that this is what we want to do, this is how we want to do it, and we want you to hold us accountable as a partner. The government goes ahead and does it first and knows that Labour is going to go on strike and say, when they go on strike, we'll call them, we'll debate, we'll pull our forces, and we'll do what we need to do.
It's like a playbook.
It's just a playbook. Kind of. We've seen it over and over and over and over again. And I think for most Nigerians, we're tired of it. We just want to see a country that runs, a country that works well, where we can go to the hospitals and use our services, where our best doctors will want to stay back and won't want to leave the country in search of greener pastures. where they have facilities to be able to give their best and do their best, like every other citizen who wants to stay and live in this country.
Definitely. Now, looking at the health sector, of course, we know all the issues that pertain with the health sector, and of course, all many doctors and health workers leaving in their droves. Now it's a new government. Should the health workers now say, okay, you know what, this is a new government. Let's cut them some slack. Let's cut them some slack, and let's see what happens before we make any other decisions or take any other action. Let's go back to work now and let's see what happens.
Okay, like the NLC, I think they don't have much of a choice. In reality, if you're going to be logical and if you're going to be rational, they really don't have much of a choice. And that's why I say that's for me, that's also the failure of the unions. One of the roles of the unions, as far as I'm concerned, and that's those are the roles of civil society, that in the course of the election campaign or the election season, they ought to have been engaging, if not all the candidates, the major candidates. We had situations where candidates chose and picked and chose where they wanted to speak or who they wanted to speak to. Labor should have come out en masse and demanded that, hey, we want to meet with these candidates. Let them tell us what their plans are. They would have had these discussions on subsidies, they would have had discussion on the health sector, whatever they had as their own agenda, they would have placed it on the table and had those discussions. But they didn't. They waited to this point. So if you waited to this point, you don't really have much of a choice. We have a government that can't swear in ministers now because, hey, the Senate hasn't been sworn in, because you have to pass those senators. You have to pass your ministerial appointments through the Senate before you can appoint them. The president has only appointed maybe people who are within. In fact, I don't think there's been an appointment. You just mentioned the people that are going to serve in his own small cabinet, but in reality, a lot of things cannot happen now. A lot of things are going to evolve. So they don't have much of a choice. They have to just wait, sit down, and see what plans this new government has to be able to solve the problems they have on the table. They have to give some point and say, hey, no, we are going to evaluate the plans, and we are now going to walk through with you to see how you implement those plans. And if you're not going in the right direction, then obviously we can take additional steps, whatever steps we need to take.
All right, let's take a couple of messages from WhatsApp quickly here. This is Yinka Bolu, and he says, yes, I agree that government costs should be reduced and all, but let's not take our eyes off the ball or major on the minor. This is the same argument put forward by ASU back then, comparing the salary of a lecturer to that of a reps member. My view is the agreement you signed at the point of taking the job, has it been met? Yes or no? If you need an increment, argue for yourself. Same goes to the long convoys. It does nothing. Even the convoys are short. The government might still work for us. So let's focus on the real issue. Digi says the removal of subsidy is a failure of the management skill of the government. One, till date, nobody has been prosecuted for smuggling fuel to other countries, yet we hear about how this is being done daily. If there was no smuggling, would subsidy have worked with proper management? And two, accountability. Without the subsidy, there's going to be a lot of money available now. What is the blueprint for spending this cash? Please help us understand what this is really about.
So I'd like to make just a quick step. There's something we see in this same business. I think it's culture, it's strategy for breakfast. If you have the culture of wasteful spending and overspending, let's forget about the optics, which is what you send out to people to inspire people to join the train. They say leaders are who sets the example and makes people feel that they want to do the work, not just tasking them with jobs. When you set those examples, people are motivated to say, you know what, our leader is doing the same thing. We need to join in this struggle and build this better Nigeria. When they see waste, people also will feel that what the people will do, which is what we are doing now, is many people are waiting for the opportunity to join that train so they can also waste. So let's not push this and say we are majoring on the minor. If you look at most companies in this point and after this year, what they're going to be sitting down and looking at is their costs. And they'll be cutting their costs or looking for opportunities to cut their costs. That is what companies do. That's what private entities do. That's what government should be doing. Where are we wasting costs? I'm not saying where are we spending.
Wasting.
Where are we wasting?
Is the key word.
We need to cut our waste. So when we say, it doesn't matter, the cost, everybody's going to change a car now. Government officials are going to come in and want their new vehicles. It's going to cost us.
All right, let's move into another story here. This is from the Daily Post. Where the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating alleged loss of crude oil revenue has summoned the managing director of Nigeria Export Promotion Council, the NEPC, over unremitted $1.67 billion. Chibuzor, sorry, I was going to stay with you on this one.
No.
We just keep hearing all these large figures on
um,
on a very regular basis.
it's this is one of the things that we talk about when it comes to accountability. It's very interesting that we're hearing this now from the House of Rep committee that is on their way out, and I'm sure that we're going to hear lots of other things like this. But yeah, government is a continuum. Their responsibilities don't stop until the last day because we're paying them to do their responsibility. So they're asking NEPC to give some account over $1.67 billion, which is supposed to have come from illegal sale of 48 million barrels of oil, crude oil export from 2015. From 2015 and from 2014. Now, obviously, if this is true and this is valid, this will be a lot. This will be good income that comes in for this government if they can get it back.
If
And if, yeah, it's a big if. But even if they cannot get it back, people need to be held accountable, because one of the problems with this thing, and that's, when the guy on the street talks about subsidy, what he thinks about is when he hears things like NNPC makes announcements every month saying, "Oh, we lost X amount." And like, it's not a pin, no, it's not like, it's not a small nylon of Gary. You lose a ship disappears, you lost 3 million barrels of this, you lost, you don't lose things like that. So it will, even, and for every government agency around us, we need to see a lot more accountability. It's not just about making announcements. Your announcements don't move a needle, they don't solve any problems. What we want to see is that we want to see this going through, because unfortunately we've seen this kind of things 9 out of 10 times before, where somebody comes and says, "Oh, nothing really happened, nothing was missing, these guys were misinformed, they're just making noise." And after a while we all forget about it. When the entertainment value is gone, Nigerians forget about it and move on to the next issue, because knowing Nigeria, another issue will pop out tomorrow. So it will be good to see how this ends. If we can get this money into the national coffers, and it will be a good push. But yeah, this is from 2015 and 2014, and we're in 2023, so it's 8 years ago. So
Nine.
nine 2014. So
time flies.
yeah, time flies. But so those are also the questions when it comes to the oversight responsibilities that the House of Reps committees and the Senate committees have over some of these things. Why does it take so long to get value from those committees? Why does it take so long to have these things out? Because if you spend 9 years, if you just come out with a report on incidents that happened 9 years ago, how long will it take for us to close the investigation and close this matter?
These are the questions. All right, let me quickly go to WhatsApp here. This is Ajayi. Ajayi says, "Good morning. The suspension of the planned nationwide strike by the organized labor is a welcome development, and the swift response by the president in sincerely negotiating with them also shows that the new administration is poised to change the way past governments handle this kind of issues." Fabian says, "Good morning. My take is that labor should have done more, like insisting for the government to show how they are cutting cost of spending and the salaries at the top with a timeline on improvements in basic infrastructure." Thank you for that message. Let me see if I can take another. No, let me. Wadi, let's quickly take a look at one more story really quickly. We're out of time, but I actually just want to touch on this one, and it's coming from Enugu State, and this is in Premium Times. The sit at home continued despite a pronouncement by the Enugu State Governor Peter Mba declaring an end to the civil action in the state. On Thursday, he vowed that his administration would resist the continuation of the civil action in the state from yesterday, which was June the 5th. Really quickly, your thoughts on this?
So quickly, based on the fuel subsidy now, I think the man should, maybe follow the style of Kwara State governor and let Mondays be, and see how you can work around that. But the other thing for me is, and a number of people have said this, if this is my opinion, and I'm not in support of anything, I think one of the easiest ways to move forward in the East is just, first and foremost, obey the court order on Nnamdi Kanu, and we just might start to see some move in some direction, maybe in the right direction or not. If a court has said, granting bail, and every time you come out with new charges are trumped up, then of course people would still go in this direction. And let's not forget, this administration is going to be dealing with insecurity across Nigeria, the 6 geopolitical zones, and some of these things bring some breath of fresh air. It's not always about stamping the boot on the floor. Sometimes about sitting together and having that discussion.
Mm. All right, thank you so much for that, and thank you, Chibuzor, and of course, Uade, for joining us this morning. I see your messages on WhatsApp, but because of time, I can't get through all of them. But thank you for sending them in. It's very much appreciated. Freshly Pressed will be back again tomorrow at 7:30. Meanwhile, more to come on the Smooth Breakfast at 8:15. We'll get into the grapevine, and at 9 o'clock, Lagos will get talking on Lagos Talks. Stay with us.